Bryson. Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Dawes.
Here.
Dr. Dozier.
Here.
Mr. Duncan.
Here.
Mr. Elmore.
Here.
Mr. Freeman.
Here.
Mr. Gunn.
Here.
Mrs. Hartland. Here. Mr. Jackson.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Shields.
Here.
Senator Leatherman. Ms. Leatherman.
Here.
Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
And Dr. Hill.
We have a quorum present. You have in your package the June 20th, 2019 minutes. Do I hear any exceptions to those minutes or any recommended changes? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Dozier. Motion by Mr. Coleman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are adopted. Executive Affairs met this morning, took no action. We'll go to Mr. Bryson to report for the Academic Affairs and Accreditation Committee.
Okay, and I am sitting
Ms.
in
Hartone is going to
for
sit in for him.
Jody Bryson, and in fact, Peter King told me that you told him at the last meeting he would take as much time on the agenda as he wanted, so.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm gonna have to throw all my notes away.
I understand Peter hit his head and suffered a right injury.
Peter, you told me wrong. Okay, well, we did have a good meeting earlier this afternoon, and we talked about some of the same things that we talked about at our meeting less than 2 months ago. But we highlighted several items, in particular, one, the CHE productivity, and that falls in line. We talked about a little bit in further detail with what we talked about today during the retreat. We heard from the enrollment management, and we do have some good news from enrollment management that over 700 new freshmen have already attended an orientation, and there are going to be 2 more orientations on August 8th and August 19th. Or I think they've been signed up for orientation, 700. And total enrollment as of August 1st is approximately 1% up from this point last year. We do have an open house scheduled on Saturday, September 28th. And other than that, the admissions office is busy preparing already for enrollment for next year. So they are hard at work and very productive. We heard reports from faculty members who were kind enough to come in earlier than what they were asked to originally come in, and we had some interesting discussions about what's happening from the different and various schools and colleges, and we had a report from the Swamp Fox Academy and what was happening in Kansa. And that concludes my report.
Questions, Ms. Hartone? Hearing no questions, Ms. Hartone, we'll now go to Development and Alumni Affairs. We will call Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a great meeting this afternoon. In addition to Director Lee Doherty of Alumni Affairs and Annual Giving, we were joined by 2 new members. Teresa Ramey's joined us as Vice President for Regional and Community Programs, and Lauren Stanton is the new Executive Director for the FMU Foundation. They reported the Foundation is currently exploring opportunities to revitalize existing events while simultaneously creating new opportunities for engagement and fundraising. Some of those existing events that are being reevaluated are the Education Foundation Scholarship Reception, the Chairman's Classic Golf Tournament, and the Swamp Fox Athletic Auction. In addition, they're working to support events for the 50-year celebration while also looking for opportunities for engagement and fundraising. The Education Foundation is preparing to transition from their current building to the Stokes Administrative Building in September. And NISA, Teresa Ramey's office, the Business Incubator and the Art Gallery have all moved into the University Place building as of July. The portion of the land at the Ecology Center was transferred to the Development Foundation from the Education Foundation. The Alumni Affairs reported they're launching a membership campaign this fall that will provide multiple membership options and continue to increase alumni engagement with the university and one another. There's several events coming up. Next Wednesday, I believe, they have an event in Greenville. And they're planning an event in late September in Myrtle Beach, and also looking towards planning another event in Charleston. The Nonprofit Leadership Institute in Lake City is going to be beginning in September and running through next April. And the PAC has a bunch of great events. I'd go through them all, but in the interest of time, that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any questions, Mr. Moore? Hearing no questions, Mr. Moore, we now go to Mr. Gunn, Financial Affairs and Facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Financial Affairs met this morning, and as most of you who were here at the June meeting, we had a very complete report, which was wrapping up the fiscal year, also was wrapping up the tenure of Jay Kispert, and his able replacement, Darrell Bridges, has joined us today for the first time as Vice President for Finance. We have just a very brief report today before Dr. Carter will give you some of the more details in his report. We finished the 2018-2019 year. We had received 99.3% of our budgeted revenue and expended 93.4% of the budget of expenses. All in all, a very good year, very solid, and a record you could be proud of. And that concludes my report.
Any questions, Mr. Gunn? So no question, Mr. Gunn. We'll now move to Student Affairs and Athletics. Ms. Leatherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had an informative meeting. Started out first with Chris Kennedy talking to us about Student Affairs is now going to be called Student Life. So we all need to get used to that. They are renovating their office space. You can go over and see it. It's in UC 205. They're preparing for freshman move-in day, Saturday, August 17th. And Trustee Ocher very quickly pulled out his phone when we were in there and to make sure that he could make it that day. They're expecting close to 600 students, and there's 127 volunteer staff and faculty, and they do welcome any of us to come and be involved in that. Tracy does it every year, I think. He also shared with us this great calendar that they've put together for their student events. I won't go over all that for the sake of time. And I'm sure that Tucker and his staff are going to be sending us all of our notifications on a regular basis anyway. Y'all did a great job with that last year, Tucker. I enjoyed getting those. I met Kendria Mason, our new SGA president for this academic year, and they just completed executive officers training down in Orlando, Florida on July 20th and 21st. They're focusing a lot on helping students with budgeting education, and also there's a lot of issues with kids that are, or students that are hungry. So they're working on confidentially having a food pantry for those students that have an issue. Then Murray gave us updates on the athletic program. About 46% of Murray's athletes, 113 out of 244, which represented 14 sports, were named to the Peach Belt Conference Presidential Honor Roll for 2018 and 2019. The golf team earned Golf Coaches Association of America All-Academic Team Award for the same academic year. Kids will be coming in, I call them kids, young adult students will be coming in, and athletes on August 13th start their physicals. Practices will start the next day. The first home games will be the women's soccer, September 7th. There's a volleyball tournament, September 13th, and then the men's soccer is playing September 14th. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
So any questions, Ms. Leatherman?
I have a question. I know they were talking about it, concerned me about the food pantry and clothes and different things. The clinic here serves the students at little no cost. Am I?
Yeah, there are no charges here for health services at the clinic, and Dr. DeMarco and our nurse practitioner work over there and provide those services. Yeah, we don't charge a health premium here.
Any additional questions? Any questions? We'll now call on Dr. Carter to present the President's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me thank all the board members for making today available to listen as the various offices and divisions of the university went through their strategic plans. Their operational plans. As you know, I think all of you know, there are four parts to this planning process in higher ed. One part, of course, is the mission statement that we look at about every 3 years, revamp, The faculty looks at that, the Board of Trustees look at that, then we submit it to SACS. The second part's a strategic plan. We look at that about every 5 years. And then the third part, of course, are the operational plans. And we now try to do those about every three years. And they're really the nuts and bolts as to how we're going to accomplish those things that are contained both in the mission statement and the strategic plan. So today you heard operational plans essentially from academic affairs, from recruitment and retention, from student life and athletics, and from the Office of Communication at the university. Next year, when Ms. Stanton's been in her place at the foundation for a year, we'll look forward to her coming in and presenting her operational plan for the foundation. And we'll ask Mr. Bridges next year to come in and present the last part of that planning process, which will be the update of the master's facility plan. We want to wait till next year because as everybody around the table knows, we have 4 major construction projects underway now. I'll mention those in just a second. And we want to make sure that the next version of the master facility plan captures those 4 components. So this past year, the General Assembly, see my friend Chairman Leatherman at the end of the table, General Assembly was very generous to us with the recurring appropriation. We received $1.4 million. We received $5 million for the construction of our Freshwater Ecology Center. And as everybody at this table knows, that level of funding from the General Assembly was sufficient enough that this university could hold the line on tuition and not increase tuition. That's the first year in a couple of decades that we've not increased tuition any at all. And I was very, very proud of the fact that we were the first state university in South Carolina this year to say we're not going to raise tuition. Mr. Chairman, we wouldn't have been able to do that without the support from you and from Chairman Smith, and we're deeply appreciative of that process. And I'm old enough, I don't know if I'm wise enough, but I'm old enough to never want to make commitments down the road about things pertaining to finance. But Mr. Chairman, if the General Assembly can help us as much next year as you were able to this year, I believe this board and this administration will do everything in the world to try to hold the line on the tuition increase again next year as well. I got to tell you, I received an awful lot of calls from parents and students about the board's action, and this won't surprise any of you. There wasn't a single negative call. Nobody complained about us not raising tuition, okay? So let me say this, next year we will ask 1.8 recurring in E&G funding for the university. We will ask the General Assembly about $5 million in deferred maintenance, may or may not be able to get. We know how that process develops. A lot of that deferred maintenance will be spent on sidewalks, parking lots, and some of the underground infrastructure where we've taken a beating over the last 3 to 4 years from the floods and the hurricanes and the like. We just as we prepare the sites for some of the construction we're doing with some of these buildings, we're discovering some of the washouts and other things that we suspected occurred, and we'll try to continue to work on those issues as well.
Well, I just make a comment. I noticed I drove in. It looked like our parking lots really need repaving.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I would hope that y'all would keep in mind to ask for monies to repave those.
Yes, sir. That would be, those parking lots would be right at the top of the list. And Mr. Chairman, you know the way this works. You're an engineer, but every time we get another one of those torrential 3 or 4 day storms, those parking lots get a little worse in that process.
We could pave them all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chairman, let me just make a few notes here. And by the way, Chairman, anytime you want to interrupt me with stuff like that, please feel free. Let me update you. Let me update the board very, very quickly on our facilities projects that are underway. Those of you who perhaps came in from this side of the university, you saw the work that's been done with the village apartments. That external renovation's complete. Those facilities look great, and I don't normally use the occasional board meetings to compliment vendors, but in this case, I really want to do that. We brought FBI Construction in, and we bid out this to FBI Construction. We brought them in, gosh, Daryl, maybe March, and we said we want all of these apartments renovated, and we want our students to be able to go in there in August. And they looked across the table at us and said, we think we can do that. You know, and the same thing can be said about 3 or 4 other construction firms that work in this area. One great advantage with using local construction firms to do your projects is they have as much pride in what they do because they know everybody in the world is going to see their logo and know the quality of the work. And they're going to have those facilities will be ready next week for us to begin moving in our sophomores and juniors in those apartments. So that'll be a great addition to the landscape of the campus. The design's now been just about finalized on the Honor Center, and in about 2 weeks, if you look across to the other side of the quad, you'll see some of those pine trees start to come down, and you'll see some of the site work begin for the development of that Honor Center. You know, the contractor there tells us he thinks that Honor Center can be ready for students next fall. That would be the fall of 2020. I don't know. Let's say fall of 2020 or spring of 21. We believe we'll have our honors student in that new honors building. Our international students, our McNair students, and our honors students in that new building. Medical education complex the design work is all but finalized at this point. The contractor will begin some of the demolition on that, and let me just pause here for a second. Nothing's being demolished with regard to the exterior of the building, but a great deal of the work inside will be taken out, and we'll start reconstructing that. I will bring a proposal to the board about that building in November. So we'll talk much more about that building at the November meeting, and at that point we should be right at the point in which we're ready to begin the actual construction of that medical education complex. I would look for that building to be completed late 21, early 22 in all probability. That's going to be again, the delegation led by Senator Leatherman had got us $8 million to renovate that building. That building's going to be such a terrific addition to our health science programs downtown, and it's going to provide us about 33,000 extra square foot of classrooms, of laboratories, and of clinics right across the street from our existing health science center. And Mayor Wakila would always want me to make this comment. It's a further embellishment to the beauty of what's happening in downtown Florence. That will truly complete that quad area there with the last part of it. The other thing the mayor might want me to remind all of you is, had the university not assumed responsibility for renovating that building, had Senator Leatherman, the delegation, not gone and got us the building, in all probability that old post office would have continued to deteriorate. And of all the buildings that exist in downtown Florence, I think most Florentines would tell you the building they never wanted to lose was that old post office. So that'll be preserved once our project gets complete. Darrell mentioned to the finance committee a little earlier the field house across the way, and the renovation of Smith University Center for the athletic complexes, and the two of them. You approved the bond documents at last board meeting. Now we're going through the state process, JBRC, SFAA, and we will bring back the bond package to you for final approval in November for that project. And once that's done, we can begin the renovation. The expansion of the field house and the renovation of the Smith Student Center, and those two projects will probably take about 15 to 18 months to get finished. And then, of course, the last project I want to mention is the Freshwater Ecology Center across the way. Bruce and Lee, of course, gave us that 145 acres and beautiful 20-acre freshwater lake. After a lot of discussion with Bruce and Lee, with Senator Leatherman, with our own science departments on campus, we decided that would be the perfect location to develop a freshwater ecology and conferencing center where the university could continue to develop its expertise in water quality management and in fisheries management. And so now, do you recall the last meeting, the land tract for that center was moved from the foundation to the university about 10 acres or so. So the university owns the land now on which the center will be constructed. The FMU Education Foundation owns the other 130 acres or so. And now we'll move ahead with the state approval process in order to be able to use the $5 million that was appropriated for us last year to begin the construction of that freshwater ecology lab, as well as the conference center that will be a part of it. Once we begin construction of that, and I believe the construction of that will likely begin sometime early spring, that'll be about a year to 18-month project as well. So between now and let's say the end of, let's say the middle of 2022, we should bring 4 more terrific projects up on this campus. All those projects will benefit the students of this campus immensely, and not a single kid's tuition will go up as a result of the construction of those 4 projects, because the city helped us, because the Florence delegation helped us in terms of getting us the money, Senator Leatherman and our other legislators, and that's exactly the way we want to build projects around here. So, 2 more things very, very quickly. Mr. Chairman, we're now embarked at the beginning of the 50th year in the history of this university. This year there will be a series of events that will celebrate the 50th year. Folly and I, in a couple of months, will host a luncheon or dinner that will recognize the surviving members of those men and women who were here on the first day that the university opened its door. Those staff and faculty members here, we'll host them at a dinner, and of course we'll ask the board to join us at that dinner, and I think that'll be a terrific occasion. In November, we will do our first ever Founders Day. We're actually going to call that day Doug's Day, after Doug Smith, our founding president. It'll be in November, which was Doug Smith's birth month. And the Founders Day this year, in honor of the 50th anniversary, will be held over at the athletic stadium. Will involve a band, other entertainments and the like as we get a little closer to that, and as the 50th anniversary committee finishes its work, we'll give you the full details on that. The Christmas faculty and staff parties and the community parties will both have the 50th anniversary at its theme, and then homecoming will also not only celebrate homecoming as it does every year with expanded crowds, but this year we'll also celebrate the 50th anniversary. And finally, there'll be a gala in spring that will recognize the 50th anniversary each of the major classes at the 50th anniversary, and hopefully will also include on the side a fundraiser for the First Generation Fund. And I might just point out to you that the First Generation Fund, as we just completed the pre-funding part of that fund, has raised just a little more than $250,000 so far. So the monies are coming in well for funding our first generation college students. But all of you know how that works. It's our jobs to try to keep the costs of the university moderate, but we also have to raise sufficient private dollars to help many of those first generation college students who simply aren't able to get here without some financial aid to get here. That notion of keeping costs reasonable at the same time we're providing more and more scholarship funding is the way that we'll continue to serve the constituency here. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would remind you that the board and the staff are all invited to the Redwoods game tonight, which I believe starts at 6:30. That finishes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for the president? Hearing no questions for the president, I'm going to ask a point of privilege. Chairman Leatherman has joined us, and I'd like to offer him the floor for any observations he has.
Doing a good job. Keep it up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that, we have no new business. We have no need for an executive session. I have a motion to adjourn. So moved. Stand adjourned.